Welcome back to Inside City Hall. Word came down today of a major shakeup at the city's Department of Education, where more than a dozen superintendents have been ousted by Schools Chancellor Carmen Farina. Meanwhile, right here on this program last night, we told you about big changes the state is making to the way New York students can qualify for a Regents diploma. My next guest has been a major voice in the conversation on education reform for decades, first as an educator in Massachusetts and in California and Washington, and then as schools chancellor here in New York in the 1990s. He's now back in the city as the president of Medgar Evers College in Brooklyn. Rudy Crew, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Very glad
now, you
to be
kind of
back.
snuck into town last August without much fanfare, although you probably deserved some. You've had a chance now to sort of watch what's been going on. What do you make of today's changes, these recent changes? What do you make of the first 10 months of the Farina stewardship?
Well, I think that, you know, sort of knowing what that job entails, what we're seeing essentially is a period of assessing what it is that really has to be done and who is it that she believes will have the capability of being able to deliver it. And the decisions obviously that she made today are decisions that reflect having given, you know, the better part of her first year to thinking about those things. And I suspect we'll see many more changes in the near term, many of those having to do not just with personnel but with programs as well.
I know it was a very different system that you operated under. You had the old Board of Education system. There was a ton of politics. It was probably inconceivable to sort of move out that many superintendents all at once. But would it have made that much difference if you had had that power?
Well, I think the danger is, yes, it would have made a huge amount of difference because you can do it faster. Under the current system, you actually can, you know, you have a bit more autonomy and a bit more license, if you will, to start executing what you see and do and think. The need, however, is to connect that to a series of very specific strategies that actually will improve the day-to-day existence both for teachers as well as parents as well as students. And if that connection isn't made, then there'll be a different set of problems that she'll be facing.
Let me ask you about something. This has been frustrating me for a while. Every time I turn around, like every 90 days it seems to me, somebody comes to me, and these are credible people, and they say there's a whole new crisis in education. Now it's Common Core. We weren't talking about Common Core last year. Now Common Core is the big problem. In bloom and privacy issues, that became a big issue for a time. There's this charter war that's been going on that I'm trying to sort of check out of because it doesn't really lead anywhere. From your considered point of view, we've been sort of all over the place when education is concerned. You've seen the wheel turn a couple of times. Why does that happen, number one? And two, is there a real crisis? Some of this is starting to feel manufactured.
Yeah. I think your impulse is right. What you have is a pendulum swing. And public education has been notorious for being able to sort of chase the latest conversation, the latest fad, if you will, the latest set of quote-unquote needs. And what we haven't been able to do is to stabilize that conversation and thus to stabilize the systems that serve children and families. And so what you're putting your finger on is this sort of fickle nature, if you will, both of the body politic and the fact that education has become a political football in that context, but also sort of if you don't know what else to do as a nation, then let's just strike up the match for another conversation about something else. So I think we've got to actually sort of settle in on a very, if you will, disciplined strategy of what are we going to do for students to improve their chances to become real participants as global citizens. And that's really what we're structuring both with the schools that we're working with as a partner with the Department of Ed, the 50 schools that we now have a network with at Medgar Evers College. It's really about taking on a coherent multi-year strategy designed to get everybody to be eligible for any career adventure, if you will, or journey that they intend to take.
Well, this is very good news because, you know, a university setting, university is an ancient community of learning.
Right.
And just as you said, instead of being sort of chasing the latest fickle fad, this is something we know has worked for a couple of millennia now.
Right.
And so what is the nature of your relationship? Who are the 50 schools that you're working with?
The 50 schools are schools that under an agreement, an MOU with the Department of Ed and with the sanction of the Chancellor, these are 50 schools that have volunteered to be part of what we call a pipeline. The pipeline is really our attempt to say, any and everybody who is in whatever their economic circumstance may be, they can go to college, they can go to a career and vocational program or a CTE program, get certification in career readiness skills that they need for the job and workplace. But they actually have to have a set of bona fides coming down the pike. Mm-hmm. A third grader has to be able to read eligible for fourth grade and fifth grade and eighth grade and 10th grade and so on. When I looked at the data at Medgar, we saw ourselves unfortunately getting an awful lot of students who fundamentally just weren't ready. Mm. They didn't have the reading skills, the math skills, the science skills. So we'd be actually sort of either having to dumb down the curriculum or allow people to come in and then have them kind of play catch up.
Medgar is still open admission, right?
Medgar is still open admission.
Okay.
We want every single one of our students in Central Brooklyn to come to us, but we want them to come ready. Mm-hmm. And the idea here is if ready means having those skill sets, then you got to double down on their ability to make that grade, if you will, but by starting much earlier and much earlier downstream.
So you've got a feedback loop to the teachers in these schools. You're sort of giving them a sense of the pace at which the kids ought to be advancing.
Giving the schools and the leadership and the teachers a chance to be successful at being able to do this. So with this summer we ran a math and science and language program using the arts, using our own faculty on the campus to start working with middle schoolers and high schoolers who frankly needed the additional support, but who needed it in the context of seeing themselves as a college-going student. Mm-hmm. So that then begins to plant this sort of subliminal and I think ultimately quite powerful message. You are a college-going student. Mm-hmm. You're on this campus, you're taking classes with a college professor. There are all kinds of experiences with College Now, getting credit for some of these classes that you will take so that you come to us, not just ready, but actually with credits ahead of the game. Mm. And we need to actually start doing that as a full-blown continuum of schools, not just a silo here and a silo there or a set of one-offs here and there. Mm-hmm. It's really got to be about an entire system. So if you think about it, 50 schools in Central Brooklyn, including Boys and Girls High, including a whole host of schools that people have, you know, in many cases sort of not known what to do. This is not different from simply saying, we actually are going to put in place the stair steps for you to climb into your future.
Wow.
And that means the college and its assets and resources, the faculty have been extremely supportive and very helpful in being able to implement this. The parents have to be a part of this envelope, and the students obviously have to be a part of this envelope. That represents an address to the pathology of failure that has existed from elementary to middle and high. Mm-hmm.
We've got only a minute left, but you mentioned parents. Is there an adult education component to this? I mean, we expect kids to do certain things, but if they don't have a home environment where that's where they know how to help them, right. The whole thing can fall apart.
Right. So what we understood, you know, about the need for parents is what they need is essentially what I call a parent academy, a way of being able to have available to them the knowledge, the resource, the access to information, the empowerment that it takes to be able to, just in time, talk with my son, talk with my daughter, my grandson, whomever it may be, but talk with them about the available resources that they need or that there are available in Central Brooklyn and in the college for them to be able to make good on the promises and the dreams that they have. Mm-hmm. They got to have a way of being able to know how to create in their home a real college-going culture.
Okay, we're going to wish you the best of luck.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
in the neighborhood, and I will stop by. I want to see you and see some of this up close. Yeah, exactly right.
All right.
All right, we're going to take a short break now. Still to come, the New York One Wise Guys will talk about the national debate over Ebola preparedness and whether President Obama's leadership is being unfairly criticized. We're back in a minute.